Yeah.
Okay, I'm
Well, let's
starting to
start.
record.
Let's call the meeting to order then.
Okay.
So the first piece of business is welcome to Jeff. We managed to get another member. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for joining us.
Sure. We'll see if I regret it later, but sure.
Don't say it's not so. All right, super. So let's turn the floor right over to Jim and have you give us a little briefing on. I'm curious to know why there's many overlapping chambers of commerce. We've had another in the past, and I understand that there's a few of them. And give us your pitch.
So just to your first question, thank you everyone for having me tonight. So the Metro West Chamber of Commerce has been around, I guess, for about 124 years. Some people think I was there at the beginning, but I was not. So just to clarify that. But so it depends on the region. And, there's a Corridor 9 chamber that has a paid staff like we do at Metro West. There's the Worcester Chamber, Marlborough Chamber, and then Boston, and there's a Northeast and a Southeast. And the bigger chambers have a paid staff. And like for us, we have about 500 members, most of them businesses, but we have 53 nonprofits. And, what our chamber does, and probably similar to a lot of chambers, I won't bore you with too much detail about what the chamber does, because I would like to spend a little bit of time on, what's going on now and how our organizations are dealing with it. In our chamber, it's broken into 4 basic areas: advocacy, advertising, networking, and training. And on the advocacy front, that's what's been very big lately. We have a paid lobbyist who kind of keeps tabs on what's going on at the State House and how that might affect our Metro West businesses. In our chamber, we have probably 15 corporate sponsors, which are larger businesses. In our tech parks, we have Bose and Sanofi, we have MathWorks, we have Staples. Their corporate offices are out there. So we have a bunch of bigger members who have certain types of needs, and then we have smaller members in nonprofits. So our public policy team is headed up by the president of Framingham State, and we get together monthly and really see what we can do to advocate for our businesses here in Metro West, but usually it benefits people throughout the state. We have some direct connections to some of our legislators. Senator Spilka's office, Senate President Spilka's, connected to Metro West. She lives in Ashland. Congresswoman Clark has been very available. The mayor of Framingham, all those groups in particular, we've reached out to them more lately because of, our business and our nonprofits needs going through some of these tough times. And then we have a separate Ed Foundation where we do scholarships every year and raise money. And we do that in conjunction with the local Rotary in Framingham and the Metro West YMCA. On the advertising side of things, we do have a decent sized audience. Our e-blast go out to over 2,600 business emails. We have 100 Facebook followers. So, as we open up the economy in Massachusetts and people start to come out and open up, we're offering just free advertising for anybody, through the end of the year. We just want to do whatever we can to assist our members. And we do a weekly newsletter where we profile a different business. Now, as far as networking goes, obviously none of us, I'm sure the same for you, are meeting face to face. So we're doing some virtual networking. We're doing virtual office hours with our members. And then just a host of webinars that we're doing weekly. And this is kind of where I want to jump in on some of the things that have been a big concern to our organizations, which is probably universal. We've done PPP when it first came out. We did the application, tried to help people get the application. Now we're in the middle of loan forgiveness. And one of our biggest concerns is at the end of June, or in that time frame where people have to have utilized all of their payroll protection program loan, that a number of organizations are going to find out that they're not going to be forgiven for as much as they thought. And there are certain rules around, full-time equivalents, the time period, what qualifies. So we're doing another webinar on Tuesday morning. If anybody, in your community is interested in tapping in, I can get you the link for that. But Shepherd & Goldstein, who's one of our larger CPA firms, did a great job today talking about that. So we're concerned that as businesses try to come out, if, say, for example, they got a $10,000 loan that they thought was all forgivable, they might be surprised to see that only 3,000 of that is forgivable, and now they have a $7,000 loan back to the government. And obviously, the scales can be much larger than that, depending on the size of your payroll. So the other concern coming up is we know, 39 million Americans are now unemployed, but a lot of them are benefiting from the extra $600 they're getting per week for unemployment, and don't have an immediate need to get back to work because they're being taken care of. But that $600 goes away at the end of July. And if we're not in some various phases of reopening where these folks can get back to work, I think a lot of people are going to be hit pretty hard, and might take a toll on our already our food pantries that are have a great demand from those folks who are some of the unfortunate ones. In our nonprofits, I just want to put in a plug for them. This, the spring is fundraising season. They would typically be having events at hotels and relying on the philanthropy of some of the larger organizations, and they've been hit really hard. And a lot of them really support the most vulnerable in our economy. Kids who really get services at home, maybe parents with mental health issues who might have jobs at restaurants. So now they're home 24/7 under the same roof without the same level of services that they might have received from some of our local agencies in Metro West. So we're just going to try to do everything we can to help as things open up. But those are where some of our big areas of concerns are. So with that, we can talk more about some of the things that we do. But I figured I would just throw it out for an open discussion about maybe some of the things we touched on. So.
Do you have municipalities as members?
We do. So the city of Framingham, the town of Natick, Southborough, pretty much, all of the, cities and towns, town of Ashland, that border Metro West. So
What's the benefit to a municipality to be a member?
well, our lobbying and our advocacy, they get a seat at the table. Like we've had the city of Framingham, the town of Natick, the town of Ashland, all participate in our public policy team. And as issues come up, our lobbyists can bring them, to the state and bring back information in the other direction. So it's not a huge cost to be a municipality as part of the chamber, but you do get kind of a say. The other thing that any of our organizations have right now is free advertising till the end of the year. And it's typically not expensive anyways for a social media post or an e-blast, but we do have a certain breadth to get information out there. So say, for example, when the town of Natick wanted to advertise for all of their restaurants, and just those that are doing takeout or whatever they're doing, we put multiple posts out to our members listing those restaurants with links, to their websites and their services. So those type of things.
Mm-hmm. The forgiveness seminar, would you email that to me? I think we're on an email loop. If you could email it to me,
Absolutely.
I'll get it posted.
And can I just get your
It's in an email between you, me, and Jason.
Okay, so I'll just reply to all or forward the invitation.
When is the webinar?
It's going to be Tuesday at 10 o'clock. We did one today. Things are changing daily. I think the biggest thing that we're pushing for is an extension of the 8-week period, because the problem with the 8 weeks is two things. One, people have their employees making more money on unemployment than they would make going back to work. And the second thing is their business isn't open. So if you're a restaurant and you received a PPP loan and you need, and say it was calculated on 10 full-time equivalents, but you only have the work for 2, if you don't bring back all 10, you only get 2/10 of the loan forgiven.
Right.
And to bring back people where you're not open and the demand isn't there isn't really an efficient use of your payroll. So everybody's pushing for a longer time period. I know the federal administration was pushed for 24 weeks by the National Restaurant Council. And I think that would be a minimum of what's reasonable, because as these restaurants open, a lot of them aren't even going to open at 25 or 50% capacity because it's not worth it for them. So they need time. And if they get that time, I think it's going to save some restaurants because we've already seen a number that have gone out. We have a Taste of Metro West that we do every year where we have about 50 restaurants and about 15 nonprofits that participate at the Sheraton in Framingham. And, you know, as we've moved out the date, just reaching out to different restaurants, some of the emails that we've reached out to are non-functioning anymore. So already seeing, I don't hate to be such a downer, but I'm just, you know, trying to paint.
It's reality.
It's reality.
Okay, well, thanks. Is there anything else you could, go
Could
ahead.
be interesting to, you know, any member or a municipality with an education program. So we have 3 large law firms that are part of the chamber that do regular educational programming, whether it's around, you know, employment law, estate planning. So, you know, those are some of the things that we do traditionally. And a lot of what we are not right now, which is an event producing machine. So we do a lot of business after hours, on-site training. We have an inclusion team as well who, you know, helps out with underrepresented populations and people with disabilities. We cover a part of our budget to service that group, and we actually provide scholarships for those groups as well.
So if Berlin became a municipal member, how could your chamber be of value to our residents or businesses?
Well, for you, you would be able to, the town of Berlin could market your businesses in any way that you want. And like I said, everybody's looking to kind of say, I'm here and I'm around when it's the appropriate time. So you could post anything related to your businesses that you would like people in Metro West to be aware of. I mean, I know you have some nice restaurants, you know, up right off of 62. I think the 110 Grill and that whole new plaza up there is pretty nice. So you could advocate for them. You don't have to have each business join. I mean, if a business did want to join, obviously they could do their own marketing for their individual business, but you could represent your community in whichever way possible. And I think the memberships for a larger, if you will, nonprofit like your town would be $200 a year. So, but it would just get you that visibility, and you could also be part of our public policy team if you thought that, you know, maybe you wanted to you know, get some advocacy with our lobbyists, you know, at the State House. So.
My last question for now, at least, is how many of your members or even friends or peers have taken advantage of COVID assistance that the chamber has offered? Many, some, not many?
Well, quite a few. So if we talk about COVID assistance, it's been, part of it has been the webinars that we're doing to provide free advice on employment law and PPP. But we probably, when we reached out to our entire membership, got close to 100 responses about what people's needs were. And a lot of them were connections to legislators. And I got to tell you, they've been great. You know, Senate President Spilka's office, if I ask a question to Susan Nickel, who's the district liaison, if I'm doing a meeting like this and I shoot an email and a question, she usually gets back while we're still in a meeting. So we're doing virtual one-on-one meetings with each individual business that requires advocacy. And some of it is actually just sitting down to help create their ad that we're going to produce, you know, at no charge. So we help with the layout if they need, you know, help with that. We're also doing member profiles. So we have a series of questions that we ask an individual member. So, you know, if it was the town of Berlin, we would do, you know, kind of a few paragraphs, lead our newsletter with that. So, and that runs once a week and goes out to 2,600 emails. So, and I'm not trying to pitch what the chamber does. I'm just kind of give you an idea as whether it was your town or a business, some of the things you could afford yourself.
Could your chamber be of assistance in a sign program we're discussing? We're thinking about designing and posting welcome to Berlin signs at the 3 or 4 key entry points on the roadways. Could you envision some way that the chamber could be of help to us?
Well, As far as graphic design goes, if it's, you know, on the design end of things, typically it's around, you know, virtual, you know, e-blasts and social media posts. That's where our expertise was. But we do have connections to reasonable graphic designers who are good. For years prior to, I mean, I just came onto the chamber as the president in September. Previous to that, I had a printing company. I worked with, you know, a graphic designer who was good. But we have resources, and you can go online and look at our member directory and see the various companies, and I can, you know, obviously help vet some of those, you know, for you. But signage is going to be important, not just from that, but I imagine, you know, I don't know if you're experiencing the same thing, but our Route 9 restaurants are looking for things to open up on the licensing and permitting end so that, you know, as they come out of this, they can make sure that people know they're around. They're also looking, I don't know if you run into the same thing with your restaurants, with this social distancing that's required, looking at outdoor seating and those types of things that would be allowed so that they could get their capacity up.
All right, I've monopolized the meeting long enough and you have to leave. Guys, any one of you have a question of Jim? This is Keith on your right or left, depending on how you're looking at it. Keith, Jim, Keith.
Hi, Jim. Sorry I was late.
No problem.
No questions here.
Great. Well, thank you for the time. And I just want to put in a plug for your chief of police, Tom Galvin. He's been great. My son works at the Burke Enterprises gas station. He's special needs. We adopted him from Russia. So my wife job coaches him over there. And Tom usually goes over there to get a cup of coffee and support him. And he's also gone to a lot of his Special Olympics basketball and football games. So I think you have a great chief in him. And, you know, hopefully you feel the same way.
And which gas station?
It's right when you're coming, if you're going 495 north and you got off at 62 and you took a right off the exit, the one that's right there on the left.
The one with the Dunkin' Donuts in it.
Exactly.
Got it.
And my son's been working there for 8 years. And I think as long as Tom's been the chief, he's made a point to go and see him on a shift and just help encourage him. So
Maybe we can do the same. What's his first name?
his first name is Nick. He's not, because of COVID-19, he hasn't, you know, with sometimes with people with special needs, they don't get the social distancing. So as soon as it's okay for him to go back, because he's a very social person and sometimes can be a little bit of a space invader, he'll be back to work, but he usually works on Thursday afternoons. So, and Verk, you know, that company Verk, which has about 35 stations, usually has people with special needs, at least one working at all their stations. So
Good for you, good for him.
yeah.
Jeff, Paul, Jason?
I have no questions. I'm good.
All right.
Well,
Well,
thank
thank you for the time, guys, and best of luck.
Thanks for joining us.
Whatever we can
Thank you,
do to
Jim.
help, we're here. Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks.
a lot, Jim.
Take care.
So long. All right. Thanks to Jim. Keith, I'm assuming you didn't look at those minutes that I emailed you?
No, I have not.
Okay, so let's just recycle that to next meeting. The next point on the agenda, I think is self-explanatory, but should we be making any further effort to help people? COVID-wise?
I can't think of.
I was just going to ask sort of what happened with the police handout and all that. Have we heard anything?
Nothing.
What does that mean? Nothing. It didn't get handed out?
Well, constructively, nothing. So I spoke to Tom Galvin, the chief. He assigned it to Goody. Goody talked to me a couple of times. He was a little reluctant to show up in uniform at somebody's house or somebody's business and start querying him, but he was on board with it nonetheless. It sounded like, this is about 10 days ago. It sounded like what visits he made didn't bear much fruit. Some people told him they didn't want their information going back to us. Not even their name, let alone name and phone number and email address. They don't want to be bothered by us.
Us meaning the EDC?
Yeah, well, us government. I mean, we're an extension of government, so.
Right, but I was trying to understand whether it was general, they don't want to talk to and provide information to the town of Berlin or, and our government or us specifically, EDC. I was just.
No, I don't think it's us specifically. I think it's just government bugging
Right,
people. I did follow up with Goody this morning by text and he didn't respond. So I have to, I mean, normally I'm not an unfollow through kind of guy, but given what I've told you, given the discouraging information from 10 days ago or a week ago, and given silence, I think it didn't work out.
well, so, and the reason I asked that question, Peter, is to this point, you know, that was an effort. And apparently we tried and there
That was
wasn't
an
a great
extra
deal of, there wasn't a lot of receptivity on anybody's part. Doesn't sound like it. So I don't know that we need to do anything else. I mean, that's for other folks to decide. But I mean, we had come up with that last meeting to do that. And it sounds like wasn't a great deal of interest on the part of businesses, or we didn't do it the right way or something. But
I mean, you know, I think Goody knows how to present himself.
yep, I agree.
He's a people person. I don't know.
Well, Keith, you were going to try and reach out to some of these folks yourself, right?
Yes, I called about a dozen folks. The folks that I know of, I was able to help. I directly got them in touch with the process. Most of them either were thinking that, you know, it was for businesses that were destitute and, you know, really struggling, or just weren't thinking it in terms of stimulating the economy and just, you know, helping their employees and payroll. A lot of people don't like the EDC, don't like Peter, to be frank. I've had some people, I left messages with a good number of folks that didn't call back. A few people that I did talk back did not want to talk to the EDC specifically as well. And then the folks that I know personally that, you know, I have a relationship either through another board or just through the town, I can say 3 people confidently I was able to help them through the process, but that's it. It was definitely a discouraging activity on my part.
So of the 12, Keith, that you call, only 3 were you could guide through the process, or was it more than just 12 that you talked to?
I spoke to, I'm gonna have my notes here somewhere. More than half I spoke to.
Right.
And yeah, for the most part, they just didn't want anything to do with it. It's only
Okay.
the 3 that I have a relationship with, a personal relationship that, yeah. Which makes sense. I mean, you know,
Yeah, people don't like strangers.
yeah, right.
I talked to one of the neighbors in Randall Road, who's a contractor, and I coached him in what he could do. And he said, nah, it's just not worth it. It's not worth the trouble. In spite of the relative ease, the PUA and the unemployment and idle and paycheck protection, he has employees. And because he's sort of a compromised, medically compromised, he doesn't want them back around him until this improves. And he's a prime candidate and he wouldn't budge.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's, aside from knocking on people's doors, there's not much we're gonna be able to do.
I don't think we should do anything further. I think we tried plenty hard.
I agree.
Okay.
All right, Paul, you're up. Anything with Highland Commons to report?
I reached out to Jed and he texted back to me that he had really nothing other than what we talked about last time, which wasn't much. He's working with lessees and with the banks and stuff and trying to, you know, make arrangements for whether how and if they relax some of their lease payments, but that's going to require the banks to relax their mortgage payments with Highland Commons. And so it's sort of, he said it's the same thing. Then I texted him back and said, but what about Fit Factory? Because there's been activity at Fit Factory. There's been construction workers in there. And he called me this afternoon and then he had to cut off. And he didn't call me back. He said he was going to. He was just a busy guy, obviously. But he essentially was suggesting that Fit Factory is doing stuff in there. They're getting ready to, they've got contractors, they got their funding back. when and how they open, nobody knows, obviously, because we don't know when that's going to happen under Baker. I think that's sometime in July, isn't it? Phase 3 or something like that, that gyms are going to reopen. And also what he understood from Fitzpatrick, and this already got cut off, that the COVID thing had prevented them from getting some of the equipment that they needed. And I assume that's gym equipment, but I didn't get any more, and he hasn't called me back. So that's the update from Highland Commons and from Jed. But he did actually respond, and so that was good, but there's really nothing specific to report.
All right, thanks, Paul. Jason?
Yep.
Well, I am a failure.
I wouldn't exactly think that's a proper characterization.
No, all I can do is apologize. I have done nothing to hold up my end of the bargain with the EDC to this point. I feel like I have my wheels under me now, as far as work and everything else that's going on. But all I can do is apologize that I didn't even reach out to Keith as far as the sign project to solicit his help. And I just got an email from the town that said my appointment to the EDC expires this month.
It's sort of a routine thing.
Yeah.
If you want to stay with us, which I hope, just
Well,
say yes.
I would like to, add value to you guys, but I don't feel like I've done that thus far. If you want me to stick around and pull my weight, I'd be more than happy to continue. But
I vote yes.
I do too.
Right.
This is Paul. Yep.
But
We got to get our money's worth out of you before you bail.
I do feel like I'm in a good place now where I can connect with Keith, and Keith and I can really kind of tackle this project and put a map together showing where the sign should go and get some realistic quotes on what the signs will cost. And
That'd be great.
so if Keith is still up to helping me, I'll definitely reach out to him in the next couple days.
Actually, I'm not. Not to jump ahead here, but this would be my last meeting. I am going to resign from the EDC, so I'm glad that you're not. Originally I had volunteered to help you guys make your quorum, and you were short on numbers, and you were going to change the warrant in the article in May. So I think we're at that point. We have a new guy, Jeff. Welcome. And it sounds like, Jason, you're not about ready to jump ship yet. I'm stretched thin. I told you that in the beginning, and the more that I see here, I just want to spend my volunteer time doing other stuff. So this is not a good fit for me. I'll have the letter of resignation after this meeting, but this will be my last meeting here.
Okay. Thanks, Keith.
Well, that's sorry to hear. I'm sorry to hear that, but all right.
Thanks for hanging on as long as you did.
But I'm excited to see that Jeff is here and you have a quorum, and it sounds like the article is going to go through without even a vote on the town meeting, so you should be in good shape.
Yeah.
Is that right? What is that? I didn't understand. What's happening with the
Article to change us so we.
Right, I understand. I know which article. So that's not going to town meeting even? That's just
It
going
is.
to be approved?
No, it's definitely going to town meeting.
Oh, it's going to town meeting. Okay, all right. That's all. Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Oh, it
So
was
that's all
listed
set.
as something that was not expected to be contended at all. So,
Right.
it's
Okay.
There you go. Okay. So, anything to report, Keith, on your end?
not more than I just already gave you the background with making the phone calls and talking to a couple of the local businesses. I have not heard back from the general store. And I had spoke to those other businesses in confidence, so I don't feel comfortable sharing their names. But the good news is I do feel good about reaching out and being able to help a couple of them. So that's good.
Right.
Okay. So Jeff, anything on the agenda that strikes you that you'd like to look into or work on?
I wish I had more that I could tell you about the PPP, but we're still figuring that part out ourselves with
Right.
the forgiveness and everything. I've been working on something for commercial about how they calculate the forgiveness, and hopefully by next month I'll be able to tell more about that if we're interested. But other than that, I don't really have much. What was going on with the Berlin General Store that we needed?
There, we just reached out to them. They were, this is before COVID. They had questions about seating outside and what could be done about that. And we found some information to share with them, but I hadn't heard back from her after that. And then we also reached out to her regarding, PPP or anything we could do through the COVID, crisis. And I have not heard back from her. So.
Okay.
So just to give you a little background, Jeff, I had a relationship with the predecessor of the previous owner, Mark, and I forget, Lika, I think it was.
Yeah.
And they attended a meeting. We invited them to, let us help them to whatever extent we could. Rich Gilbert, Cabela's former general manager, offered a gift card to help them. They didn't bite. And then the current owners have not been interested in any support from ADC. So that's a little bit of background.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So let me give you a little summary of some other things. Cabela's. So Rich Gilbert's been promoted to the East Hartford and Scarborough, Maine, East Hartford, Connecticut and Scarborough, Maine store marketing manager, but I think it's more like a regional manager. The East Hartford store is twice the size of the Berlin store. Sean, whose last name I didn't catch, but I've met, is the new store manager. They hope to reopen on Monday for curbside sales. The gun store was forced to reopen due to the federal guidance. So they have 4 appointments per hour for the gun part of the store. Boats are considered essential, so that part is open. It's all done outside. The Board of Health shut them down, the store down. I'm telling you things out of order. That's why they were closed. They're negotiating with the chief and the Board of Health to reopen, in part due to those two, and in part due to the state mandates, which they're hoping at the next phase it'll be possible to reopen. Rich is part of the.
So Peter, so the store is actually not open, even though I got an email that said Cabela's is open with limited hours. It's actually not open right now, except for the gun store and the boats.
That's my understanding. Yeah, I misunderstood. I could have misunderstood him, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. Yeah.
Okay.
He was invited to be a retail advisor on fishing and hunting on the governor's task force to reopen, which he participated in. And as I said, he's in discussion with the Board of Health and the police chief to reopen. So that's where they stand. He expected it to be a couple of week closure. Needless to say, it's been far longer than that. Any questions?
No. And so Rich is in discussions with the chief and the Board of Health, or is it now Sean?
I would bet both, given Rich's relationship to the town.
Right. Right.
So that's that. Spoke to Chris Bastian, Solomon Pond. June 8th is the soonest they can open per the governor's mandates as they interpret it. They were prepared to open May 19th, but that came and went. They're starting curbside for those tenants that want May 25th, which must be the same date that Rich talked about. Yeah, that's Memorial Day weekend. Memorial Day. But it's my impression that not many stores want to do that in a mall like that. Fridays has been doing the pickup thing since day one. National tenants are still figuring out what they're going to do, whether they're going to open with the mall or at some later point. They're on their own timeline. And I asked him if any of his tenants wanted to terminate their lease, and none want to terminate their lease, which I thought was pleasantly shocking.
Well, and some don't know, like Penny but I guess Penny doesn't own it. They own their own footprint or something. I forget.
Yeah,
Their
I was
store.
more referring to the mid-size and small. I think the big ones would naturally stay open unless they nationally close.
Oh, or a couple of them, I believe, have started bankruptcy filings, but I don't know about the specifically at Solomon Bond, but I did see several large retailers that were filing.
Yeah. I think JCPenney was one of them.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm sure the other shoe will drop and more will fold. Anyway, so that's, there's some movement. He was pretty forthright. Spoke to Matt Senni at some length. The town continues to cooperate well with them. The state will not allow the daycare to open. They used to have 150 kids. Yet, gas station remains. Go ahead.
Sorry, daycares are June 29th, I think.
Yeah. Gas station remains 50% off. Hotel is 75% off. They've stayed open because they have long-term tenants, longer than some hotels that have closed down. This is interesting. 6 couples are moving into 6 apartments tomorrow. I didn't know they're that far ahead. 30 more units will be occupied by the end of June. Boundless is going to open June 30th. They've been closed for 2 months. 1,700 groups were canceled, which not only means bad revenues or low revenues, but of course less employees.
You said 1,700 groups are canceled?
Yes,
All right, wow.
it's quite a lot. So the town only gets a fee, and Riverbridge only gets a fee off of Boundless if they exceed a certain threshold of dollar revenues. He believes that they won't exceed that revenue number this year. Last year, I thought I captured it, what he said the town made, but I didn't. Last year was a pretty good year, relatively speaking, obviously. Not as good as it could have been because a competitor opened up in Canton, which is sucking up a good deal of the Boston area guests, but it's not as good a facility. Liquor store is still open, not doing well, but they wanted to keep it open for image. They still have sandwiches in the liquor store. The sandwich place, the cafe, is closed. They felt it was good marketing to keep it open still. A side note, he said that Lowe's in Westboro normally does $500,000 a week. They're now doing $1 million, he heard. And they expect to open the cafe on June 16th. And that was his report. He apologized for not being able to join us.
Okay.
We talked about the police handout. Online security module's done. Code of conduct is done. I guess, Jeff, there's a code of conduct thing you need to complete. Probably Eloise will connect you with it.
I've done that already.
Oh, great. And that's it. That is it. Pick a date for next time.
All right.
I'd like to suggest a Wednesday, but I'm open-minded to whatever, unless that doesn't work for someone.
Wednesday's probably fine.
Wednesday,
I
I
want to
would
do
have a
later July, later June, I'm sorry. later June? Jason, you're the one that's arguably got the most difficult schedule.
Yeah, the last week of June, I'm tied up. So the week before, I think that Wednesday was the 24th.
The week of the 27th, 22nd is bad, or 29th?
Week ending the 27th is bad.
Okay.
So I could do Wednesday the 17th if we were going to do a Wednesday.
Paul, Jeff, what's your fancy?
As long as it doesn't go too late, that should be fine.
Yeah, I think the June 17th can work for me. Yes, it can.
Give me something to double.
Just be positive about that. Yeah, the 17th is actually the 1 week in June that can work for me. The week before and the week after do not.
So we could do the 1st of July if the 17th is too soon, or the 17th. Well, Jason, do you think you'll put a dent into some of the things between now and the 17th?
Why not do the 1st then?
Pardon me?
Do the 1st of July. Give Jason more time.
Jason, what do you prefer?
I think, yeah, the 1st should be fine.
Okay, let me just check that. That's almost a holiday week. Is that going to be okay with guys? Everyone?
It's okay for me.
All right. So the 1st is. Does that work for you, Jeff?
Good. Are we still doing 6 o'clock or?
6 o'clock seems to work, but does it work for you guys?
That works for me.
Jason? Okay.
Well, on a Wednesday, I could do earlier, but 6 is fine.
I'm open. What do you prefer? Paul, at 6 or different?
Oh, it doesn't probably matter to me.
Jeff?
If other folks want to try earlier, I can do earlier. If it's better for Jeff, that's fine. Doesn't matter. I'm cool either way.
I could probably do as early as 5.
Yeah.
What do you think is better for guests? 5-ish or 6-ish?
I have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like anybody who's working, if they're, and 9 to 5 or 6 o'clock is a normal time.
Then let's go with 6.
Yeah. All right.
July 1st at 6 it is.
Sure.
I make a motion to adjourn.
All right.
Second?
And we have to remember. We have to say everybody's in favor. Paul's in favor.
Jason's in favor.
Pete's
Peter,
in favor.
Peter's in favor.
Not allowed to vote yet.